So very good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone globally out there in the world. And today we will be covering venture and capital event on the topic of blockchain technology and its transformational effects. We have a really distinguished panel today that's highly global, highly diverse, and we're looking forward very much in the next 30 to 60 minutes on how we're going to cover some exciting topics. But before we jump into that, let's get a little bit of a view on some of the background of our panelists, and I'll just be calling out some names on what I see on the screen, and probably can give a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, and basically a bit of introduction on yourself. So starting first, Jillian, would you be able to share a little bit on yourself?
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. I have to say that a number of years ago, I lived in Sydney for 3 years, absolutely loved it, adore Australia. And I spent 2 years in Singapore after that, actually. So I'm delighted to be back in this part of the world again, if you like. I'm Irish, as you may or may not be able to tell from my accent. I've been working in fintech for 30 plus years. I started off my career at JP Morgan in London after I finished my degree in Ireland, in Trinity. And since then, I've been working in the fintech industry. I started off as a programmer, then I moved to Australia and I went into fintech PR, so switch sides, if you like. And then about 20 years ago, I moved into more writing again and journalism. So right today, the last 4 years, 4 years ago, I discovered blockchain. So I'm a recent convert in the industry. I adore it. I have an activist past, long story, won't go there now, but I fought the banks and the governments and all the rest of it. And I kind of won in the end, I think. But anyway, I have a deep appreciation and passion for this space. And it's led me to, as a result, pre-COVID, I was traveling the world, chairing conferences and also interviewing people and talking to people. So it's been a great privilege for me to be a journalist in the space, in an industry that I am passionate about, and to talk to people who are making a difference. So I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. And Daniel, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, I've been in the technology market for 30 years. I've seen a lot of changes. Actually, as a kid, I started out with a Commodore 64 and programming in BASIC. And, it seems a long way back, and dial-up modems and things like that. So actually, I've been involved in blockchain for about 7 years. I had the great privilege to work with MIT University for 18 months, marking papers on the blockchain course that they had, which was through a company called Get Smarter. And that was really amazing experience to see all of these people that have signed up very passionate about blockchain, and then finding out that most of their papers were about their own business idea. Which was fantastic. So I got to really see a lot of different ideas from people around the world. So at the moment, basically, I am in charge of 2 different companies besides International Blockchain Labs, where we really do research and development. I'm the CEO of Speed Dragon, which we're launching as the world's fastest crypto exchange. So that's 1 foot in the centralized space. And then on the decentralized space, I'm the CEO of ZK Tube, which is a leading layer 2 solution using zero knowledge proof. And yeah, again, I think like Jillian, I'm very passionate about blockchain. When I first joined, everything was about decentralization. And then I realized that, this is not really the case. Most of the exchanges and major business applications were using centralized systems and private systems. And I think now, particularly seeing, Ethereum being developed further with layer 2 solutions and the new version coming, I think this is going to really bring big business to the Ethereum network. So I'm very excited about that. I've sort of been waiting for Ethereum to take off as a business application platform. And I think now is really the time that this is going to be happening. So I think we're at a very exciting time now where that shift from centralized to decentralized is starting to make a lot more sense, and that the ecosystem has developed a lot further. Some very smart players, some excellent brains in this blockchain space, and especially having good journalists reporting what's going on as well. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Daniel. How about Jason? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, my name is Jason. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer for the Algorand Foundation. And the Algorand network is a public permissionless protocol. And we have the Algo token as well. So part of my role as the foundation is we have the algo tokens that are in our stewardship, that we run programs on behalf of propagating the Algorand ecosystem. So we run grants, accelerator, bounty programs, and also invest in companies and support the organizational growth of the Algorand network and the foundation. I also sit as a board member to Blockchain Australia, the peak industry body for Australia to advocate blockchain technology. And also I'm involved in a number of sort of industry groupings in the ASEAN region, formerly a banker, recovering banker, Standard Chartered Bank in the Asian region, and also a fintech startup co-founder, and then moved into the blockchain space like many of you about 3 to 4 years back, and have not looked back since. So very fascinated as we talk about our past background to now look into the future of what the world of finance will look like. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. And Naquib?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Naquib Mohammed, and I have a shorter stint in blockchain, 3 years plus. All my career, 12 years plus, I've been a core IT technologist. I've worked on telecom and big data analytics sector all my career, delivering solutions of the globe. Like I've been traveling. That was part of my job, working with different tier 1 telecom operators around the globe on big data analytics and customer experience management solutions. When I ventured into blockchain, it was more on the enterprise side, and that is where I came across early startups like Hashgraph and Algorand. Algorand was just starting at that time. Jason, I'm a very early supporter of Algorand and one of my most favorite platforms out there. Yeah. So when researching like more into the enterprise sector, I looked into Hyperledger and all, and this was where I was implementing and developing solutions. I started into the financial side of blockchain and then into DeFi and crypto. When working into that, we realized that the DeFi is definitely meant to be borderless. Borderless is something I always borrow from Algorand, great word. So DeFi is meant to be borderless, but it is not yet inclusive. So that is where we conceived the idea of Marhaba, which is coming up as the world's first inclusive decentralized financial platform. We are building an ecosystem together. Most of it is blockchain agnostic, chain agnostic. Yeah, so happy to be in this space and happy to be part of the conference. Looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Leeor, would like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks very much, guys. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all and learn more about your backgrounds. My name is Leeor Groen, and I'm a partner at a Swiss-based venture capital firm, Blockchain Valley Ventures, or BVV. We've been actively investing and deploying capital into the ecosystem for 3.5 years now, and set up really with the idea of trying to bridge the traditional financial world with the emerging market opportunities, not necessarily on liquid trading strategies around crypto, but really very much actively involved in supporting projects, early stage companies, and the future pioneers in this digital asset ecosystem. So we really focus on Europe, Asia, and Australia cross-border opportunities, and that's where we really spend all of our time. So I've spent the last almost 2 years in Singapore, currently back here in Switzerland, where we're basically brought together our two strategies now. One is on the equity side. We're investing in companies, bringing this whole industry forward, including cybersecurity, data, and all of those other bits and pieces which are not directly on the chain, but really facilitate that ecosystem, as well as our crypto native strategy, which is really crypto venture capital to its core. So coming in early, backing early stage projects and helping them on their journey to pave the future of this industry. So pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a very quick background myself, I'm Blim, a founder of Vision Group. We focus very much in areas of future tech, specific technologies that will mature in the next 3 to 6 years. So we look very much at implementing AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity for companies that want to future ready themselves and eventually look at how to turn their vision to reality. So really excited today with such a distinguished panel, global experience and highly diverse. And I'm going to kick off the first question on what is your view on what will the world be like in 10 years and what you think will change in the financial world from now till then. Open up to the floor and any views that you might have.
Yeah, I'm happy to kick it off. I think that the finance world will be transformed, reformed, and take a new form altogether. In the way we trade, transact, and store value, which I feel will be reorganized in a whole radical way. To quote a financial thought leader, Chris Skinner, he said that thousands of years ago, we invented the money. We still have money. Hundreds of years ago, we invented the banks. We still have banks, which now facilitates the transaction of money. And decades ago, we invented the internet. And with money, banks, and internet technology coming together, stacked on top, we're now giving access to billions of people on this planet the opportunity to transact and finance, not just on the traditional 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. basis, but 24/7 real-time trades. And we are still yet to see the full implications towards what the future of finance will look like in the next 10 years. So if you ask me where finance will look like and how it would change, we will see the stacking of money, banking, internet, and there's just a sliver of a groundswell of innovation that will happen in the way we see the world of finance. So I guess this is a bit of an opening that I'd like other panelists to share as well in where that 10 years would look like.
I was going to just add to that. I think it'll go slow, and then very fast, because I know Chris Skinner too as well. I interviewed him recently. But if you think about it, here in Ireland, we have public holidays. We still call them bank holidays. There's that legacy is still there. And the whole idea of banking is only recently, banks used to close for lunchtime. And they open at 10, so the opening hours and the access and they weren't open at weekends. They totally dominated our lives unnecessarily. Well, not necessarily, but they had control and they kept us by the short and curlies, to use a euphemism. But it's going to change because people, young people, Generation Z, and even old folk like me, we don't really like the banks because of what they've done, and there needs to be a change. So I think it'll be like the smartphone. We had it. How old is a smartphone? Is it 12, 15 years, whatever? We had it, and then all of a sudden our lives changed. We didn't notice it changed. So I think it'll go slow, and then bang. And it'll, unlike the smartphone, which has the double-edged sword, I suppose, in terms of the screen time stuff, but it will only be for the better. It absolutely will only be for the better.
Yeah, and I think, just to add to that, right, there's some more tangible applications within the industry. We very much taken a mindset, and our thesis around it is that the ecosystem players such as the Coinbases, who have really profited from the growth of and adoption of retail investors and participants coming in and getting behind what was initially Bitcoin, and I think we've seen in their second quarter results now. Ethereum trading is actually now the biggest revenue driver for them, or trading volume that they're putting through in terms of growth rates and people what people are trading. I think that these are the players who are taking, exactly as Jason said, that evolution of internet, banks, and money, and putting that into practice as a new age counterparty for all three of those things. So digital money with a digital service provider, enabling you to do digital transactions. And when I think of a kind of Coinbase versus a Revolut and some of those neobanks, which have been growing, losing a lot of money for the last 12 years, if I can say so, versus a company like a Coinbase, which has 50 million plus retail users, profitable since day one, and is turning out billions of dollars in profits on a quarterly basis. I think that the competitive landscape of this space is just, it's a perfect storm for these massive giants now to go forward with their vision of decentralized future applications within blockchain. And I'm incredibly excited and bullish on what they'll be able to achieve, given their resources, given their proof of concept and what they've been able to do, and the scale in which they've already achieved over the last 7, 8, 9 years.
Great thoughts. Certain things to add to what Jillian said, because I can relate to exactly the problems that I've been facing. Like since the last 8 years, I was based in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has a weekend of Friday and Saturday. My home country, India, has a weekend of Saturday and Sunday. So if there's an urgency that I need to send funds across from Saudi Arabia to India, and if I do it post 3 o'clock on Thursday, it reaches India on Monday, because Friday being an off on Saudi Arabia, and Sunday being an off on India. So the way we have been evolving in the banking sector, and the way we have been evolving due to the applications of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, this has been changing the finance world altogether. And this is certain aspects. The economists don't even understand the progress that we are into. It's totally technology based driving that's going on. I mean, the finance 2.0 or the fintech 2.0 that we are going into is driven completely by technology. As Leeor said, that moving from centralized to decentralized and then moving back to centralized, this is what exchanges have been doing. I mean, we take money from the banks, we convert it into cryptocurrencies and then put it back into exchanges, which is again controlled by centralized entities. So it doesn't solve the purpose. So decentralized finance in real sense is fulfilling the vision of what Bitcoin, I mean, Bitcoin in real sense is the real decentralized currency. But the way it went in the last 5 to 6 years in the blockchain space, it totally destroyed the currency. But due to this advent of decentralized finance driven applications taking up the market, I don't see enterprise blockchains anymore making the news. It's all decentralized finance and financial based applications. So, and this is where I think the world is moving across.
Sounds good. Daniel, do you have any inputs on that? You're on mute, Daniel.
Sorry about that. Yeah, a lot's been said. I think basically it comes down to we're removing a couple of dimensions. Basically, time is being removed. You know, people have touched on that. You know, physically having to wait until the stock market opens. I mean, that, compared to what's happening in the crypto world where everything's 24/7, 365. And, actually having bank hours, today I had to transfer 100,000 US to a company and I needed to physically go into the bank and I had to adhere to their hours. But I see the future as, that first of all, time will disappear and that everything can be done 24/7. And second of all, location, not having to physically go somewhere to do something, and I've worked on some projects with law firms, for instance. We're talking about banking, but just talking about contracts, where rather than you having to sit down with somebody, everything will be done through a blockchain system. You've got dispute resolution. So a lot of these things will also go over to the banking world. It was fantastic. Setting up an account with the Commonwealth Bank in Australia took 5 minutes for a business bank account to be opened, and I didn't need to go in there. A few years ago, that would have been unheard of. So, we've seen disappearing branches, locational branches of banks disappearing. There are banks in Australia now that are functioning without any physical locations, but purely online. So I think, essentially, we're getting that borderless, the promise of the borderless world that we've been looking for. And also, everything just going to 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really interesting, right? Not only are huge numbers of technology disruptions coming faster and faster, but more so the adoption of people adopting these new technologies as well. Right? I think there was a survey that literally states that for 25% of the US population to adopt the technology, it was like 45 years for electricity, a personal computer was 30 years, the internet was like 15 years, and Pokemon Go was just 19 days. So imagine now with new technologies, how fast will people adopt that, right? And looking very much in the next 10 years, I think it's really good items that we actually have brought out in our first question, where we talk from transforming to reforming to taking a new form, or how we stack money, banks, and internet together, slow, and really becoming very fast. And looking at how technology-based driven economies might eventually change, removing the items of time as well as location. So we bring it a little bit closer to the current timeline of where we are today. In the year of 2021, the blockchain and in a way the crypto space has went through a roller coaster ride very much in the last number of years. So what do you think might be some things that hold and stick, from what we had from ICOs to STOs to now the DeFi, the NFT movements and the likes, and it's also in the blockchain space where enterprises are now adopting very much more the technology and the underlying core technology. What do you all think will really hold and stick in year 2021 and the upcoming very, very close near future?
Yeah, I like your question about what would hold and stick, because I was just talking a couple of days ago to a top lawyer from an international law firm based in Singapore, and she said that she has not seen an ICO agreement in the last 2 years. And I know you mentioned about ICOs, initial coin offerings, STOs, security token offerings, and the space has evolved completely right now. And I think the hot topic of this season is decentralized finance, NFT, non-fungible tokens, and also a bit of conversation on the metaverse, right? Virtual reality taking place as well. I would want to sort of add one point that I feel would hold and remain, which is in the world of stable coins, which is a tethered version or a stable currency of a national currency itself. Just even within the Algorand network, we're seeing stable coins, not just in the US dollars, but the Turkish lira, the Brazilian real, the Canadian dollar, and many more. And the reason that stable coins are unique and interesting is because they offer a pegged value to the currency. It excludes the volatility out of the traditional crypto sense of price movement. And also, the interesting world of decentralized finance is that stable coins also allow you to participate in what is commonly traditional, like lending, borrowing, earning interest, but in a very unique way as well. So this is sort of one area which I feel would hold and remain. And again, the transaction speeds are fast, it's borderless, and there's no middleman. So I'll just stop here. I know the panelists would have other points as well.
Yeah,
I was nodding. Just quickly, quick thing. I was nodding furiously at the metaverses. Totally with you on that one. And stablecoins. I'm going to add NFTs, DAOs, and tokenization. Keep over to you. They're my predictions.
Yeah. I mean, look, you said moving from the acceptance of decentralized finance, financial applications, and the enterprise blockchain. So look, the way I entered into the blockchain field was actually when I looked into the way Gartner had predicted the cycle of the next emerging technologies, that everything in the future, the industry 4.0 would be actually driven on top of blockchain-based technology as the underlying layer. And this is how I started into enterprise blockchain as one of the first entries. I mean, I had listened to different speakers on YouTube. They say that if you don't know Bitcoin and you enter and you know enterprise blockchain, then you don't know blockchain. And that was what exactly my situation was. I did not know much about Bitcoin, but I knew a lot about Hyperledger and about what enterprise blockchain does. And going forward, I really noticed that the enterprise sector is not really picking up because people are still waiting for the maturity to happen on the enterprise sector. Because, I mean, usually the blockchain hardcore supporters and the Bitcoin hardcore supporters, they don't consider enterprise blockchain to be blockchain at all. Because in real sense, it does not fulfill the criteria of decentralized system. But then again, decentralization itself has a lot of definitions, and distributed technology itself has a lot of different explanations. You know, if we call Uniswap to be truly decentralized, then we have seen the news in the last 2 weeks that Uniswap took a step to delist some of its tokens. So that means it is in control of what's happening in its platform. So decentralization itself and control itself has a lot of different definitions across different fields. But the way that this has been moving is, NFTs and the metaverse is definitely driving the adoption forward. And the way the celebrities have started accepting cryptocurrencies as the form of payments, and Ecuador being one of the first country to make Bitcoin a legal tender, probably this is the biggest win that Bitcoin had since its inception. That the bank that was the biggest mocker of this technology actually announced its acceptance, JP Morgan. So people might consider that Ecuador making Bitcoin as its legal tender was the biggest winning for the Bitcoin industry. But actually, in my opinion, JP Morgan accepting Bitcoin and making it feasible for its investors was the biggest win for decentralized money.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's right. That's some really good points there, Naquib. I think 2021 is the year of the regulator. Have you noticed Binance have been kicked out of about 10 different jurisdictions in the last, maybe 60 to 90 days? Binance as definitely, one of the major leaders, not just in have them launching a very successful ICO, the world's largest centralized exchange, but also what they're doing in the decentralized world. And, that's a company that is trying to innovate and trying to diversify. And, they're being kicked around by regulators. So it sort of shows that taking a leadership position in this market, doesn't always seem to make you the hero. But the regulators are really becoming strong and more united. I think they're starting to look around the world at what's really happening and trying to standardize. I've noticed that, in applying for licenses in many different jurisdictions, that now things have become a lot more standardized. It's the same questions. They want to see the same types of things out of the systems and the people behind the systems. It's very big about the policies and the procedures that are going to go with those things as well. So I think definitely 2021 is the year of the regulator. From a technology point of view, with Ethereum, 2 coming, I think this is going to really legitimize the decentralized world. Years ago at an event, people were asking me about the future of Ethereum. And I said, well, these guys are early players. I think there's going to be so many other players that they're going to get drowned. Right now, it's still the number 2 highest value cryptocurrency coin. And most people that own Ethereum really don't know much at all about the business application potential that it has, and about layer 2 solutions and, the different companies that are playing in that ecosystem. So, as was mentioned with IBM and Hyperledger, I've been looking at these wonderful use cases with IBM and Hyperledger as a partnership. You've got Nestle, you've got TradeLens, there's just so many, Johnson & Johnson, so many excellent use cases. But I think a lot of people would agree that, yeah, that's not what we would consider to be traditional blockchain. It's not decentralized. This is permissioned. And basically, it's a corporate system like SAP or Oracle. So now it's time for the businesses to start looking more seriously at the development of Ethereum and say, well, hang on, this is sticky. It's not going anywhere. The journalists are starting to say that Ethereum will be the most highly priced cryptocurrency, which means that it's got to overtake Bitcoin, which is a massive margin that it has right now. But with layer 2 solutions really solving the scalability issue, the speed issue, Ethereum has inherently been very secure. I think that now you'll see a lot more of the test cases coming over to the Ethereum platform with layer 2. Vitalik had mentioned a couple of months ago, ZK technology, zero knowledge technology being probably the biggest winner in the end, which is why I got involved with ZK Tube, doing these things. But I think definitely decentralization can really now start to get some legs in 2021. At least the regulators are not focused on Ethereum right now.
Sounds good. And Leeor, do you have any inputs on what do you think it's hot right now and upcoming, and what was stick and hold?
Yeah, I think, a lot's been said, and I would just add, right, we're very much focused on DeFi. There's a lot of hype around NFTs and all of these topics, but I think the input layer is what's most relevant. And what Daniel mentioned with Binance kind of facing some regulatory topics in many countries, I think that's, the natural response for regulators is to control the kind of gatekeepers who support or enable the money inflows and outflows of the ecosystem. But what's, I would say, probably nowhere near being done at a meaningful enough scale is regulating what's happening within, let's say, the ecosystem once it's in there. And all of that I include as stable coins, and I think USD stable coins have had a tremendous growth in terms of adoption and use. And we talk about how do you actually get $100,000 into someone's bank account today versus tomorrow. That does look like a fundamentally different process. And I think that these types of things, once we have established, pools of money and value, which is inherent to everyone and their counterparties, not the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, but is the Coinbase or Binance Bank of Australia, whatever that means, has a digital access to a wallet. What can you then do with their money? And I think that that's really where we see most of the applications. And what I would consider is moving away from this idea of customer to counterparty, or even the last 10 years, we've seen a huge growth in peer-to-peer crowdfunding, investing, lending. Where we're really moving to now is a pool-to-pool mechanism. So all of the value can be spread around and moved around to the places where it needs to go for the purposes that it needs to be. And we are all in control of that. And I think that that's really the next frontier and where we're actually spending most of our time deploying capital at the moment is in projects that are facilitating these pull-to-pull mechanisms. Once the money's in the system, once it's already in a stable coin, then what can it do and why is it doing that? These are many of the questions that I think will shape and continue to drive the dialogue over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I guess that very much as regulators start to kick in, that's when they start recognizing very much this as a mainstream or becoming a mainstream so-called instrument, as well as a specific area that people are really looking into. And that's why regulators are coming very much harder. And there's so much more movement in the technology space in terms of advancements. So let's deep dive a little bit into one of the key trends in the areas of DeFi. And what do you think DeFi might look like coming up in the next couple of months or even next coming 1 year? You know, it's been really, really hot and that's a lot of movement and advancements within that space. What's your thoughts in DeFi? Open the panel.
Yeah, I'll maybe just continue the train of thought that I started really. And I think the reason why, I mean, we basically launched a fund to really get involved and back entrepreneurs in this space, crypto entrepreneurs and projects, for the exact reason that we see the opportunities that we have today is what we characterize as the composability of liquidity, right? So we always talk about composability of projects, and you can cross-chain, multi-chain, all of the fun terminology you have in the way in which protocols are interacting with each other. When we take a step, 12 months, and we really look at a 3 to 5 year horizon when we're considering what does the world look like. But it's really, okay, so we have a base level of applications and operations which are facilitating a crypto infrastructure, which has proven to be incredibly resilient. Then the specific verticals, which enable us to, let's say, move forward and provide interesting financial products. I mean, this is really where we see that happening. And that's what I think I referenced with the composability of liquidity, which is me as a retail investor. I mean, we always talk about, wouldn't it be nice if markets were 24/7? I mean, factually speaking, most people, most of the world's population is not interested in being able to trade 24/7. Right? There are people who like to do that, and most people don't care. Reality is, though, as soon as you give people the opportunity to be responsible for their money, to simply choose different products, providing different, risk-adjusted or risk-return profiles of savings accounts, credit opportunities, and all of these in the one place, and be able to make a very simplistic decision around how to allocate their funds, not into 10 different managed funds and products, whatever superannuation fund you're being sold by your employer, etc. I think this is really where you have an interesting thing. And the reason I'm so bullish on this is because from a conceptual perspective, I don't think it's that hard at all. I mean, what we're doing here is not necessarily that revolutionary on a first step, right? That next step we're taking. It's getting existing assets and resources that people have today, putting it and applying it into more efficient ways. And that's why I think the catalyst and growth opportunity for DeFi has been so explosive, especially compared to many of the evolutions over crypto over the last 10, 12 years. I mean, this is something that in the last 18 months has really exploded exponentially. I think we're at about 5% of wallets today who are engaging in DeFi of all the total universe of crypto wallets created. So we're still very much at the beginning of this process. And as soon as we have, let's say that inflection point when 51% of wallets and let's say market participants in this universe are participating in this ecosystem, you have a huge financial infrastructure, and that will dwarf basically most other asset classes in terms of what you as a retail investor are allocating into and how you're controlling your money. And I think that alone, those applications that people are creating to facilitate that flow of money is incredibly interesting, and really where I think the next 2 years is going to be dedicated to. And then once you have that money there, being able to move it around and do all sorts of fun things on top of it, that's really where I see long-term bets being made today. And Algorand, many projects that we look at are on the Algorand network and are really very much at the frontier of not just the next 6 weeks, but really the next 6 years of infrastructure developments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some good points there. And I think DeFi is one of those things that is the catalyst for the use of decentralized platforms. Looking at decentralized applications before, it was almost like people are forcing the use case for it and not being able to solve the inherent issues. But now, I always say that, where there's smoke, there's fire. And in this case, where there's money, there's going to be opportunists. And I think a lot of people have seen that, decentralizing finance, you're bringing that money to that decentralized platform. this is going to be, I think, what's going to launch so many rockets, in the next couple of years. What do you think about that, Jillian?
Good pass. I was going to say two things. We were talking about the wallets, 5% of the wallets engaging in DeFi. Now, DeFi is massive. Last year, the summer of DeFi, watching everything and all the pancakes and the sushis and everything that was crazy. And then those flash loans, it was just mad. Yeah. But I think, so you're right, in the short term, it will move over there. But the big problem for me is, and I think for most people, it's DeFi is not pushing mass adoption. If you're in, it's very exciting and you're taking advantage of it. But it's like, the reason why I mentioned NFTs is that I think that is grasping people's imagination outside the industry, because it's easy and it's low cost too as well. You're not going to lose your pension if you engage in, well, anyway, you're buying, but you can dabble and play. And I really think it's the whole thing about, I mean, DeFi is amazing and I absolutely love it. And I love all the stuff that's going on there, but we need to make it simpler. We really need to make it simpler. So it needs to be as simple as using a social to do something. And then the other point was, I think, Leeor, you said people don't want to work 24/7. Of course they don't. I mean, I'm in this industry. I don't trade. I'd like to still do something with my money, but leave it, because my interest is not finance. My interest is writing, life, courses, I don't know, whatever. And most people are like that. So I think it has to be easier. That's why the NFTs, I think, are pushing mass adoption faster. So sorry, to summarize. Yes, internally, the move towards DeFi is massive because people who are in this industry can see it. But externally, we need to make it simpler. That would be my Tottenham's worth.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I don't like to put so much of stress in this area because that's not my field. But personally, what I've been observing, and this is what is making it obvious as well, the gaming area and the metaverse area, this is what is actually pushing the adoption forward. And the esports industry has always been forecasting that our industry will be the one to actually bring blockchain-based awareness to the mainstream. And this is what exactly is happening. All those traffic jams we have experienced in Ethereum has always been due to the new launches of CryptoKitties and Axes and Alices and everything. And today, it is today's morning. I mean, Daniel, I think you are a very hardcore supporter of Ethereum, and it deserves the support as well. But the exchanges, the centralized exchanges have experienced all-time low on Ethereum reserves. So this itself means that people are, I mean, this is the next level of awareness that just converting money from fiat to crypto and storing them in exchanges, they're actually trying to own it now. So they are moving it out of the centralized exchanges. They are putting it on DEXs. They are putting it on games. They're putting it on NFTs. So this is where the traffic is moving, and this is how things are. And I mean, just this last week when Messi announced that he would be accepting his part of his payment in social tokens, the NFTs that were created was actually sold beyond what his annual payment was from the club. So this clearly says that how much people are actually willing to accept these new form of payments and new form of applications that's trending on a daily basis. And obviously, I mean, Leeor is into that industry where he's actually the fuel behind pushing the application forward. So yeah, I mean, definitely this is how the trend is moving ahead.
Naquib, I have a good question for you. A few years ago, I was at a blockchain conference or a fintech conference, and next to me was a gaming company, and they said, we are a blockchain gaming company. And I thought this was amazing. So I went over and I asked them what it means. But at the end of the conversation, all it was a traditional online gaming company that accepted crypto payment. And that's not a blockchain gaming company. But could you explain to our audience what's changed since then with gaming?
Right. So look, I'm advisors in one of the blockchain gaming projects that's coming up. So I can give you a little bit details of that. But personally, I'm not a gamer. I don't play games. So blockchain-based gaming and the adoption that's taking up is more of creating your digital assets, owning those digital assets in the real world for example, I'll give you a very real example of one of the projects that I've been closely looking into. So these guys are, they own licensed arms, weapons. So what they are doing is that they are creating an NFT version of those weapons, and they are creating the assets inside the game. So when you are actually playing those games, you are creating the NFT, you're owning the digital assets or the digital twins of these real world assets, and you're trading them inside the games, you're playing with them, and you are exchanging, you are increasing your assets. Games like CryptoKitties, games like Dinos, Dino Land. So where these ancient creatures that we used to read in our school books, they are coming alive. You crossbreed them, you make a world altogether. This is an whole metaverse that's going on. I mean, all those interests that we had as kids, I think it's still there in the back of our mind. And when we are getting an opportunity to play with them in the real world as grown-ups, we are putting all our money into it.
Yeah.
And that is where NFTs and these card transactions and all those things that we used to collect as kids when we used to buy bubble gums and biscuits.
Yeah.
So it's just converted into the digital sense. And we as adults are these are few applications of NFTs, but NFTs have real world institutional use cases as well, where governments are looking into creating the deaths and birth certificates as NFTs. Companies like IBM are issuing the patents as NFTs. On the Islamic fintech space, the compliance certificates and the bills, they are being issued as NFTs. So there are a lot of institutional applications as well. But what is actually creating pushing these things ahead is those little games that you used to play on pen and paper in our little rooms. They have been converted into digital versions, and they are like forcing the movement ahead.
Can I add something? I interviewed Sarah McKenna 2 days ago, who is the co-founder of Alien Worlds, the biggest game in blockchain game. And an answer to the question too as well, Daniel. So everything's on the blockchain, so it's all transparent. And Alien Worlds, I'm not a gamer either, by the way, but it's 7 worlds, 6 of which have their individual DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations. So people come onto the game, and then they earn their trillion, which is the coin in the game, and they can stake it they can choose a planet. And because it's a DAO, at the moment it's like in transition. So I think, I'm not quite sure what it reaches a point, whatever, where the DAOs become truly autonomous. Then because Sarah was very keen to say, it's not about playing to earn, that is a huge thing. We've seen that with the Axie game over in the Philippines, but it's about people living in a metaverse, choosing a planet, staking their money, and then choosing how the planet does its rules. So people are going to be living in these metaverses. Is this a good thing or not? I don't know. But it's amazing how it's just this next level. What can be imagined can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. The Matrix has arrived.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Jason, if you don't mind, can you just brief on what the metaverse activities are really going on the Algorand side, because it's something really to be heard about.
Yeah, no, I think we're still early days in the whole concept that the metaverse, I think once popularized by Neil Stephenson in his book Snow Crash. But right now, the metaverse is essentially an evolution of NFT. So in the NFT world, it's not just about acquiring a non-fungible token, but in a way, a virtual reality of what is to be as well. So I think I'll keep it high level as it is right now. And then maybe pass it back to Lim for additional questions. But it's a very interesting space to explore. So if any of you are interested in the sort of the venture and capital space, that's somewhere to definitely look into. Yeah.
Seems like some very exciting and interesting stuff coming up in the next number of months and years as well. But I guess one of the things is that we are talking about all the DeFi, we're talking about NFTs, and that's very much driving a lot of traction within the space itself. But let's talk about traction. And there are still many people that might not have been within this space. There are still many companies that are still building their solutions that of blockchain, what's your view in the areas of what do you think might be stopping the traction and adoption of the masses onto this space? And for a lot of our audience out there who might be running their own startups or their own business, do you think that this is the way they should go to adopt blockchain technology, or even be so-called somewhat related in the tokenization space of the likes? What's your view on that, on traction, and whether it's a technology that they should adopt as a must-have in the next number of years?
Yep, I'll probably answer that and just start it with a story. Okay, my late grandfather actually brought in the first black and white radio and televisions into Malaysia, and it was German European brand, sturdy and good. And as the evolution of the radio and television went, the Japanese efficient, cheap, cost-effective one came, and he didn't really want to switch over because he had good European relationships back in the 1950s to 60s. And that actually led to the demise of the business, unfortunately. And that's because he didn't keep up with how things have evolved. And in the whole world of decentralization, we've seen that because of cars and planes, we've actually decentralized movement in travel, right? Where you don't have this big centralized headquarters, but now hubs across the world. Because of the internet, we have decentralization of information. We used to all, in the early days, huddle over a radio or television set to get our information. And now it's all decentralized through social media and different means, and even through the communication right now across the world, right? From Switzerland to Ireland to Australia altogether. So same way, we will see that, but they will be the classic adoption curve, right? So I guess all of us in the room are sort of the leading the adoption curve, and soon enough, more would follow suit. So to those listening out there, I guess it's where you'd like to place yourself in the adoption curve. And I think, as mentioned, the adoption curve is shrinking, and I believe that if you're listening to this, it's about getting into the curve and understanding where it goes to, it's moving towards, and sort of be part of that journey altogether. So that's where the traction is going. Yeah.
Look, in the initial discussion, Jillian highlighted a very important point that this year is the year of regulations. Regulations is something that the blockchain enthusiasts don't like. They don't like this word at all. But the fact is, unless you cannot skip the law of the land if you want to create an adoption in that same area. So this is not possible. So the traction will actually come when the creators in this industry, the builders of this industry, build ethical and transparent applications. Look, blockchain, the technology itself is transparent, but the transparency has to be from end to end. So this is really important, and that you go hand in hand with the regulators, not in a way of overstepping them, but in the terms of working along with them, supporting them. You cannot have, it's not possible, I assume, for a global adoption the way that we have in our mind. It's not possible to have it without the support of the law of the land. So regulations skipping is something that should never be looked into. The traction will definitely come when the builders are working hand in hand with the regulators, with the lawmakers, to build applications for the general benefit of the society. So if we are working on projects which are typical pump and dump schemes, okay, we create a fork of SushiSwap and make it Burger Swap. No, okay, Burger Swap is an application. Okay, we make it any swap. And then you create a tokenomics, which is really appealing to the investors. You are getting all the vesting done in 6 months, and everybody is being rewarded in the first month. You will be successful in raising the amount that you're looking for. You will be successful in selling off your tokens as well. But what it really means is that after 1 year, the builders will have their own place in the world, making a living, but it will actually leave a bad taste in the mouths of the regulators. So it is very important that we work together as a team, as a combined force, to look into applications that really benefits the society. And if the society is being benefited, the common men are being benefited, then only, the developers, the teams, the technical teams behind it, they would definitely be part of it. Jillian, your regulations part.
I was going to add, I totally agree with what you're saying. However, the other little side of me that says need overcomes traction. And if you look, for example, at the African continent, where they went straight from, they didn't have villages don't have landlines. They went straight, the telecommunications went straight to the smartphone. and they use minutes, telephone minutes as a means of value to exchange. There's two things going on. There is the regulation, of course, but there's also what people need to do and the needs. And we see it because of climate change, because of what's happening in Afghanistan, access to money for refugees around the world. So I think that I'm not quite sure who will win. Will it be the sheer force of a population doing something because they have to? I was reading an article recently, and the chap eludes me now, but he was in a refugee camp in the Netherlands, and then you're not allowed to have a bank account or anything until you're actually, in the system and you actually have your asylum. But he suddenly remembered, he had some Bitcoin, so he ordered pizzas to the refugee camp, and everyone's like amazed because how could he do this with that money? So I think there's two things going on. There's the needs of a population, of a world, and we live in a very changed world. We're all here virtually, and then the regulation, and there needs to be a balance. I don't know what it is. I don't have an answer to this, but I can see them both sort of butting together, and it's going to be an interesting fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be nice to think that this revolution is going to benefit everybody, but for years I've been saying these projects banking the unbanked and giving access to people. But if we look at, one of the big trends right now, NFTs, that's just driven by greed. And, as Mark Cuban says, the joy of ownership. And, suddenly you've got all sorts of people coming out of the woodwork as, NFT artists now, people that may have been bankers, may have been welders, may have been a starving artist, and now suddenly they're selling, NFTs for millions of dollars. So yeah,
Jillian is an NFT artist. Yeah,
I've actually started to dig out some of my old photography and think, can I spruce this up as an NFT? So yes, unfortunately, the world does work in demand, and we can't control what that demand is or how clean or ethical it is. But I think you're right, Jillian, coming back to need, and there's no need for NFTs, but there's a need for people to feel good about owning them or selling them. And so somehow that does, again, fit into some type of need.
Yeah, I guess we have really, really exciting discussion today. In such a short time, we cover so many years in the future, what's happening in the past and what's really happening right now, and all in a really, really short span of time. And I guess the audience would really be excited to hear more, but unfortunately, we're running a little bit out of time. If there's going to be one key takeaway that you think would be beneficial to our audience, and you think that would be the key essence, what would be one key thing that you would like to say to everyone out there? Open to anyone. Sorry? Hodl. Okay, that's a nice one. And the rest of the panel?
I have one thing to add. It's interesting, privacy. Now, I know people would accuse people in the cryptocurrency world, it's criminals, and they put that slant on the privacy, like it's anonymous and all stuff. Now, we know it's obviously pseudonymous. But what is interesting is I did some work recently with a company involved in privacy. And what is interesting is that, the most recent thing is, if you've got nothing to hide, you can let it all out, nothing to hide, whatever. But that actually negates the whole reason a democracy works, a democratic world works on the basis of our vote, which is private, and governments do not need to know everything about us. So I think sometimes the cryptocurrency world is accused of, lots of things, FOMO and to the moon and Lambo, but that privacy is a huge concern in our modern world. And I think that the cryptocurrency world is actually bringing it up to the fore and saying, hang on, guys, look at China, the rating system that's happening there. It's actually from the Broken Mirror, the TV series. But what's happening in China is quite scary because you're being rated on your actions. Because they know if you buy vodka every week, or if you eat 20 noodles, or if you're overweight, and your child can't go to the right school. So I think that's something that the cryptocurrency world is bringing a lot to the world, and privacy would be one of my things I would say is interesting.
I would just add to that. I think, blockchain is much more than just crypto and all of these applications. And Jillian, I couldn't agree more. Privacy and the way in which, information itself is secured and managed. That's a key area. And the most recent deal we actually just closed last week was into a confidential computing company, which, is nothing to do with crypto itself, but is really an enabling technology for all of the fun things that we think are happening on top of that, and enabling that to become the de facto way of doing things, right? So couldn't agree more. And I think from my side, it's really just final word would be to say that this is still early days, right? And I think there's a lot of hype and momentum, and it sounds like most of the people on this call have been in the industry for at least the last 3 years, so have seen at least one cycle come and go, and some of us even 2 or 3. So I think, momentum aside, depending on the day of the week, I mean, this is really something that at least many of the investors out there, and I include ourselves in that group, I mean, we're here for the long term, and really backing kind of moonshot ideas to get us to where we think there is an opportunity to do things better than it's currently being done today. So you don't need to follow the Bitcoin prices every day to feel confident and comfortable that some good things are happening in this industry. And sometimes it's worth digging a bit below the surface and the latest NFT hype or bubble to feel comfortable that people are really building some interesting solutions that can affect and change the world.
Great. I'll just add up by saying that things are going to move really fast. I mean, this conversation, as you're watching it now, might be outdated by then, already looking at the trends now. So keep up to date, and you won't regret just putting yourself in this space. I think all of us here can agree. I guess it's more of understanding how the times and seasons change and continue to be aware and move along with it. So that's on me.
Yeah, and this area is driven by passion, and this is what keeps everybody alive. Everybody, I assume, and who's part of this industry, is part of this industry because of their passion and not because they had a living to make. So, yeah, as Jason said, probably by the time when we meet next, everything that we have said would be outdated, and there would be so many huge things coming up. Daniel is doing great things on layer 2. Maybe there would be layer 3 and layer 4 we would be talking about by the time we meet next. So, I mean, this is how things are evolving every second as we speak. So keeping up to date and keeping yourself as aware as possible is the only way to I think, survive in this industry the best way.
Yeah, agreed. Change is
good.
constant.
Daniel?
Yeah, no, change is constant. I mean, we're ICO, STO, IEO, IDO, EIEIO. This is just constantly changing. And, for people watching, if you want to know what's happening in the blockchain world, just hit those popular websites, look for Jillian's writing. I spend at least 30 minutes to an hour every day reading the sites and just seeing what's going on and forwarding things to people that I know within the industry for comments and seeing what they think. But yeah, I mean, this is a space that, we talk about blockchain time. Blockchain time is completely different to normal time because there's so much constant change. So I think, just encourage people to try to stay up with it, stay interested, don't write off new ideas too quickly because they may be, the next form of mass adoption. So, as we talk about the metaverse, NFTs, DeFi, stable coins, all these things we've talked about today, it'll be interesting to see in 12 months time, how hot these things are and how they've evolved. But yeah, change is constant, and, people just need to keep an eye on this space.
Totally agree. So from holding to privacy to speed of change, as well as how things will constantly change, I would say that's very much just a matter of time when things come by. It'll be really interesting to see, as what Daniel said, in 12 months, where are we in this current state and where we will be 12 months later. With that, thank you very much to all panelists for your really passionate sharing and your insights. I'm sure the audience has greatly enjoyed this session and be looking forward to more sessions ran by Wholesale Investor as well as our venture and capital event. Thank you very much to everyone globally out there in the world, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Excellent moderation, Lim. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Fun conversation.